Now, for the 16th one, we are to update console.py. That's we are to update the update method. We are to modify it to be able to produce outputs using this format from the command line. Class name dot update followed by ID and then followed by dictionary representation of the attributes and its value. So now before we can be able to try updating any attribute by doing it with the format that has been required of us, we first need to modify this update method to be able to accept a dictionary as an argument and then disassemble the dictionary before passing the contents to be updated. Because we know right here, I think this format, what kind of format are we expecting here? We're expecting the ID followed by a comma. We're expecting user.id, then in braces we have ID, comma, attribute name, comma, attribute value, which means the attribute value is at the index 3, attribute name index 2, attribute the class ID at index 1 and the class name at index 0. So we have to modify this to be able to use a dictionary to assign attributes to update a user class, most likely a user class, the object of the instance or object of the user class. So what we are going to do is we are going to use a regular expression to search for curly braces in the argument from this input. So before we go there, we are going to make sure that we've imported RE, which is for regular expression. So what we are going to do is we are going to say we're going to use regular expression to search for the curly braces. So we say go here and let me start afresh. I'll do here and then think something. Go here, then you have to escape this one again, and then we say, so what we are doing here is so what we are doing here is we are using new regular expression to search for curly braces, and then these curly braces, if we find these curly braces, we are going to grab the content of these curly braces. That's what these normal braces are. Is grouping this whatever content that is inside these curly braces, and we are looking for these curly braces inside this argument, which is the argument from the command line, this same argument, and we are going to save this to a variable called curly braces. That is, if it's found or if it's not, we are going to save it in there, and then we are going to say if there is a match, meaning if the curly braces were found, we say if curly braces. Now what we are going to do is we will take the content of the curly braces and save it as a string data. So we just say string data is equal to curly braces dot group, which is group 1, because if assuming we were looking for something else and we grouped it with these braces, it would have been group 2. If there's another one, it will be group 3. So since we have only one, that's why it's group 1. And then next thing we are going to do is we are going to take this string data and convert it back to a Python object as a dictionary using the AST module. So we're going to use it with the AST module. So we are going to say AST the as, and then we are going to use the literal eval method of the AST module, and then we're going to say, let me just type this out. So what we're doing here is we are, since we found the content, if there is a content inside this curly braces from the argument, we are going to grab this content, save it to a string data, and this string data, we know that is a string. So what we want to do is to convert it back to a Python dictionary to be able to use it. So instead of using a val, that's the val method, we are going to be using ast.literal eval. They do the same work. Only difference is that this one is a bit safer. This one is safer than the eval method. I believe we should only use the eval method if we trust the input or the user, because it's a bit dangerous. Just let me not go astray. So we are using it to we concatenate these curly braces together with the string data, and we evaluate it with this AST module, and this we convert it to a dictionary, and then we save it as argdit. But for this to work, we have to go and import the AST module. So we import the AST, and then we come back here. Okay, so if you're wondering why I only took the content of the or what's inside the brace, is and still convert it back to a dictionary, when I mean with the content and the brace is already a dictionary. I tried to use the content and the accompanying braces, but I just kept getting errors, so that's why I decided to do it this way. So next thing we are going to do is we are going to take the keys from this dictionary, this argdit. Now we know that this is a dictionary. We are going to take the keys from them and convert them into a list. So we are going to say list, take this argdit, that is, we are going to take the keys and convert it into a list, and then we save it to a variable. Let's say call this attribute names, because we know that in the dictionary the keys are the attribute names. Then we are going to take also the values of this dictionary, which we know is the values. We are going to save it as attribute. We're going to save it as attribute values. So to make this clear, let's say we're expecting something like um, if we're expecting something like this, say first name, and then so if we're expecting something like this is the key. So here we take the key first name and age and save it as attribute name, which means age will be at index 0 and sorry, first name will be at index 0 and age will be at index 1 for attribute names, and for the attribute values, Jensen will be at index 0 for attribute values and 490 will be at index 1 for attribute values. So now that we've gotten this, next thing we are going to do is we are going to separate them into individual values to correspond with their counterparts. Like we are going to say that attribute name 1 will be equal to attribute names at index 0, and then the value of this attribute name, we call it attribute value for 1, will be the attribute values also at index 0, because here we know that this is the attribute name which is at index 0, so we save it at index 0 and give it the variable name attribute name 1. Same thing for the value. So we are going to do the same thing for this, for the remaining attribute. We are going to save it as attribute name 2, which is at index 1, and attribute value 2, which is at index 1. So now that we've done this, just like what we did here. So wait, let me not confuse us. So I will say if this, so else, and I'll take this and put here. So you see, so next thing we are going to do is now that we've gotten the attribute name 1 and value 1, and we've gotten the attribute name 2 and value 2, we are going to set the attribute using the set attribute method. So we say set attribute, and then we pass in the object, and then we pass in attribute name 1, and then we pass in the attribute value 1. Now we've set the attribute, we set the, for the attribute name and value of 1 is set. We are going to do the same thing for the 2, second attribute. So which means if we are expecting, if we see if the from the command line, when the argument comes, we check if he has curly braces. If he does have curly braces, we are going to take the content from the curly braces, convert it back to a Python dictionary, and then take the keys and convert them to a list, take the values, convert them to a list, grab the attribute name, the first attribute name and the first attribute value, and then we grab the second attribute name and the second attribute value, and then finally we set both attributes. Then if there is no curly braces, we just go on with the previous pattern or method that we have here. So Next thing is after this we are going to go back to the default method to modify it. But before we go there, let's test this one out. Let's test this out. Uh, So if I open this, okay, let's say all user. So this is the user with age 150. So let's see what happens if we should pass a dictionary to update it. So we say user dot, we have not done this, constructed it in the default method, so we use this way. We say update user, and then we pass in the id. Yes, passing the id, then followed by dictionary. This, okay, take this. Then so let's see if this got updated. So we see that when we do this, we've updated age to 490 and first name to Johnson. But if we should try to do this with if we try to do this, you're going to get a syntax error because we've not updated default method. If we say user dot update followed by, yeah, call it syntax. So we have to go to our default method to update it, to modify it. So here in our default method, let me just walk us through what we have here. So let's say since we are working for to update this method, the update method, to be able to execute this command, that is class name dot method followed by id, then dictionary of containing the attributes. So we are expecting something like this. So after splitting by the dot, this arg list is going to have a user and then these other ones, which means user is index 0. So user of index 0, we save it as incoming class name, and then this one which is at index 1, we are going to split it by the dot. We are going to split it by the opening brace, which means we are going to have user as index 0. So we save it as command, and then we save this command, the item at index 0, which is the user, which is this user. We save it as incoming method name. And now that the command, the item at index 1, which is the id and the dictionary containing the attributes, we are going to split it by the closing brace. And if we split it by the closing brace, we are going to be having all of this at index 0 and then an empty string at index 1. So we are going to grab the one at index 0, which is all of this, which is what we have here. And then this part was for the need to modify. That was before, when we were still expecting to be using this command user the update. So that's why we have to split it by the comma, so you can have id separately, attribute name and attribute value. So yeah, so we had to further split by the name and pass the ask to the method construct for update. That is, you have to split it and pass them here for the method construct. But now that we have to modify this update to be able to call, to be able to use the format this way, that is the format coming from the format line, command line. What we are going to do, we are going to remove all of these parts. We're going to remove all of this part, and then this part too. We're going to remove all of this part. So for now, I think we. So now I'm thinking about this. For us to be able to now grab the ID and then grab this the attributes contained in this dictionary, which is a string representation of the dictionary. So what we are going to do is we are going to create a new function that is going to do this for us. That's we're going to pass and process all of this. Then so we are going to do it in a new function. So this is going to be the function. I'm going to call it split curly braces. So now we know that here we are going to take this incoming extra argument, which is this, and we are going to pass it to this function. We're going to take this incoming extra argument and we pass it to this function that we are going to create. Don't mind me, this I want to do this here, then I'll copy it and put it back inside the script. So we are expecting this incoming extra argument, which could be either this, which means we are using the previous format, or this, which is the format with curly braces. So since we know we are expecting either this one or this one, so we are going to use this function to return the right arguments depending on the format from the command line. So again, we are going to use regular expression to search for curly braces like we did before. So we say curly braces is equal to I'm supposed to import the regular expression module, which is array module, but since I'm going to be copying this, I'm taking it back to this place, so I'm just going to do it straight. I would say I believe I've explained this part before. So followed by opening curly braces and then yeah. So now if curly braces is included in the command line, so you're going to say if curly braces, that is if there's curly braces so if curly braces is searched in this argument and is found, so what we are going to do is we are going to first grab the ID by doing this. We are going to say we are going to use the flex module to split, say flex.split, and then we pass the incoming extra argument, and we are going to be, let me type this out then I'll explain. Say curly braces dot span 0, and then we save it as ID with comma. So what's happening here is let me hold on. So this will be equal to this. So what I'm doing here is assuming that the argument, okay, I think I skipped something, should be incoming extra arg. So assuming that when we search for the curly braces inside this incoming extra arg and there's a match, and now we know that this curly braces contains this this curly braces variable contains this string representation of this dictionary. So what we're doing here is we want to grab this part that contains the ID. So that's why we use /split. So we are splitting this incoming argument. So what we're doing is this part, what this part means is that we are going to start from here. This is the curly braces dot span means everything in the curly braces, starting from the curly braces. So the 0 here, index 0, means the curly brace itself, that is opening of the curly brace. If we should say curly brace 1, it means we are going to be splitting from here, this single quote. If we say curly brace 2, it means we are going to be splitting from here, the first name. So since we have 0 here, it means we are going to be splitting everything from this curly braces to the end, which means we are going to be left with this ID with the comma. That's why I saved it with ID with comma. And then we are going to further split up this comma that is associated with this ID. And so we are going to say ID is equal to I'll say for I in ID with comma, what do I want to do? I want to strip off, okay, now I want to strip off every comma. That's what we are doing, is to iterate through this ID with comma one after the other, and once there is a comma, we strip it off. So I'll just put this here. Excuse me. So like I said, we are going to go through this. If we strip this ID of the comma, we are going to be left with the ID at index 0, and since we've taken off this comma, we are going to be having an empty string at index 1. So we are going to grab index 0, which is this only ID, which is a string, and we are saving it to ID. And then now that we have the ID, we will take the content inside these curly braces, which is this from here, the content inside the curly braces, and save it to a variable. So we are going to say we are going to call it string data is equal to curly braces dot group 1. So now that we've done this, in the update method, we are going to use ast.literal eval to convert the content into a Python dictionary. So we are going to say, like we did before, argdate is equal to ast.literal eval, and then we are going to concatenate this with string data Okay. So I think um, you're going to do this with a try. So make sure to catch any error. So I just push this. So I'll print the message, maybe invalid dictionary format, and then we return none on it. So this is going to return none. So, but if after trying to convert this to a Python dictionary, if everything went well, what we are going to do is we are going to return the ID and the arg dictionary. So which means we are returning a tuple of a string and a dictionary. That if curly braces is found within this incoming extra arg. Now, if no curly braces was found, which is this part, the else part, which is we are expecting something like this for this part. We're expecting something like this. So what we are going to do is we are going to split the comma in the incoming extra arg. All these commas, we are just going to split it. So we are going to save it as commands. We say commands is equal to incoming extra arg dot split, and we are going to be splitting by the comma. So we are still going to use the try block to try to assign the different variables. So we just say id is equal to comment. We know id is going to be at index 0, and we say attribute name will be at index 1, and the attribute value will be at index 2. So if this part should go well, what we are going to do is we are going to return the ID and the associated attribute name and attribute value by combining them using an F string. You can use a string format if you wish. So we are going to say return. I use an F string and I pass the ID and also an F string. I'll pass the attribute name and also the attribute value. So this way we are going to be returning something like this without the comma. Something like this. This is what we are going to be returning. So remember that we returned a tuple. If curly braces were found, what we return here is a couple of a string and the dictionary. So which means here this function is expected to return a tuple. That's why we are returning an ID, which is a string, and the attribute name and value, which is also a string. But we are returning the ID as one item and returning the both attribute name and attribute value as one item but separated by space. So of course you have to catch any exception, and I think something like sorry, but let's catch general exception and we'll say maybe argument missing. So I'm going to grab all of this copy it, and then I'll go back here. Going to drop it here. So now we know that this is going to pass whatever argument that comes here, and it's going to return an ID and a dictionary, or it's going to return an ID and the attribute name and value. So I'm going to grab this, and then we are going to go back to our we're going to go back to, excuse me, our default method, and we're going to update our default method. So coming to this our default method, we are going to call the function and pass it the incoming extra arg as argument. So, and whatever tuple it returns, which are a string as ID and either a dictionary or another string as attributes, whichever that are returned, we are going to unpack them into two variables. So we are going to do this down here. Okay, remove this. We are going to do this down here. So remember, we are expecting an ID, and we are expecting either an addict, a dictionary, or a string. So if it's an ID, if we are going to save the unpack the ID to this, and if it's a dictionary, we are going to save it to update. Even if it's a string, we save it to update. So since we are expecting the ID as a string and update as either a dictionary or string, we are going to use a check to assign a string if it's a string and a dictionary if it's a dictionary. So we are going to say we're going to use try. So we are going to say if addict is a string, we say if is instance, that is, we are going to say if the addict is a string, if it's a string, it means the format was without curly braces, so which means it's the previous format. So we are just going to assign the attributes. So I say attributes is equal to addict, and then we are going to construct the method and pass the expected arguments. So for this, I'll just move this here. So okay, so I think I'll just save this as object, the object ID. So it means I already have this here. So we are going to pass the remaining this attribute name, sorry, the attributes, which we know contains the attribute name and attribute value. So now that we've seen that if the instance, if this update that is returned from this split curly brace function, if it's a string, we are going to do this. Then if it's a dictionary, we are going to say elif is instance addict is a dictionary, so if it's a dictionary, we are going to, well, I'm going to assign it as to a variable called dictionary attribute. So I'm going to say dict attributes equal to add dictionary. You can go ahead and just use this directly instead of assigning it. So after doing this, I'm going to pass the dictionary attribute to the method construct. So again, I'm going to return, I think I'll just copy this or copy it from here. Check out this one. And then I'll pass the object ID and then followed by the dictionary attribute. So by doing this, what we've achieved here is if the extra argument comes in without curly brace, and then we pass it to this brace split curly braces function, it's going to return an object and a string. If it returns an object and a string, then we check to make sure that if this argdate returned is a string, we know that is the previous format from the previous task, then we do this. But if what was returned is an actual dictionary with the attributes, so we confirm that it is a dictionary and then we pass it here. So knowing that when we pass it here, the update method here from our code modification, if we pass it here, the same thing we did here, the update method is going to handle the dictionary that was passed. It's going to handle the dictionary, separate them to a list, and then separate them to their individual values, and then set the attributes. So this being said, let us test. Final block. Okay, where did I mess up? Line 312. 312. Okay, so let's complete this. Try web. I don't know, maybe print argument missing. I don't know. Argument missing. So let's try this again. Okay, yes, going to say first, let's see all user. Okay, you say destroy, or was it user.destroy? Say user.destroy, and then we pass in this ID. Say all user again. Okay, so what else? Let me pull this up. So I'm going to say create user. I'm going to say all user. So we see that we don't have any first name or anything like that. So I'm going to say user dot update. So we are going to pass in this. So I first copy this ID. This will come. So I'm going to say age 300, name Johnson, and that is first name. So fingers crossed. Attribute name missing. Well, okay. So I think there's something here. I mean, I've been looking at this red line and I've ignored it. So since we are damn me, since we are passing we're passing three arguments to this string format, we had to use for curly braces. So we take our one to make sure they rhyme together, and now here we are passing three, we have to add one to make sure they rhyme together. So let's try again. So I have to quit and run again. So I will say all user, and then I'll copy this and I paste it, fingers crossed. And then if I say all user again, okay, there we have it. You see that first name is Johnson, like we did here, and age is 300, although I'm not 300 years old. So that is it. And then the next one is to write the test. Okay,